Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Learning Israel webinar program. I'm your host, Rabbi Ari Enkin, coming to you live from Beit Shemesh, Israel. As we do each and every night, each and every webinar, sign in, let me know your name, let me know where you're listening in from, and confirm with me that you hear me okay and that you see the first slide. Welcome, Bulgaria and England and Springfield and Texas and New York and Germany and Ireland. Welcome. Oh, wow. Big crowd this evening from all around. I guess all our members really woke up this morning itching for a webinar. That's great. Big crowd. Welcome, everyone. I see that the sound is working perfectly and the audio is working perfectly. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know about you. But I just can't part with Hanukkah so fast. I don't know. It's just still itching me, that this Hanukkah, I don't want to see it go. Not right away. Maybe we can schlep it out a little bit longer. And therefore, with that thought in mind, let's have some Hanukkah, one last drop of Hanukkah oil. Sit back, relax, and enjoy Ari Goldberg.
Hanukkah light burns so bright, lifts my soul, raises my sights. Hanukkah light feels so right. 8 small flames shining through the night. Walking in the darkness, sorrow all around, looking for some joy, for a hopeful sound. Just when I start to give up, seems there's nothing there. A little glow appears, shining from nowhere. Hanukkah light burns so bright, lifts my soul, raises my sights. Hanukkah light feels so right. 8 small flames shining through the night. The darkness starts to lift now. Help is on its way. Hopelessness is starting to fade away. I lift my eyes to heaven, where my help is from. The light now from the flames shines for everyone. Hanukkah light burns so bright, lifts my soul, raises my sights. Hanukkah light feels so right. 8 small flames shining through the night. The light is piercing through the darkness, shining till forever. There's hope and love and brotherhood that's bringing us together. Open up your heart to make a brand new start. Hanukkah's the time to tear apart. Whoa, Hanukkah light burns so bright, lifts my soul, raises my sights. Hanukkah light feels so right. 8 small flames shining through the night. Hanukkah light burns so bright, lifts my soul, raises my sights. Hanukkah light feels so right. 8 small flames shining through the night.
Some great comments coming through on this video. Comments such as Hanukkah all year long, let's not let the lights ever go out, and the like. Yes, absolutely. Hanukkah is over, but may the light and the inspiration and the spark of Hanukkah indeed be with you all year long. Let's get into the Genesis class. We're going to go talking about now God telling Abraham how many Jews there's going to be. So what happens? The Torah tells us in Genesis chapter 15 In a very famous and dramatic verse, God takes Abraham outside. Come with me, Mr. Abraham. And God says, look up, look heavenward, and count the stars. Can you count them? Of course not. And God tells Abraham, that will be your offspring, numerous beyond ability to count. So a simple reading of this verse, of this little episode, is that Abraham asked God what would be with his legacy. He was promised so many dreams and riches and fame and nation and spirituality. He was promised everything, but he had no children yet, and he was getting old. Most men don't have children at 100 years old. He was getting worried. God, what's with the promises? And now you're telling me I'm going to have so many descendants that they'll be as numerous as the stars? Well, God, how about one descendant? Can we start with that, God? I'm 100 years old. God says, don't worry. Don't worry. You're going to have descendants, and they will be too numerous to count. And Avram believed God. Avram didn't give up faith. He held on tight. He continued to believe that God would come through. And of course, as we know, God came through. But there are a few problems with what is going on over here in this little episode. There's a few problems. First of all, it was not necessary for Abraham to go outside to realize that you can't count the stars. We all know, I'm sure all of us right now listening on this program, we're all indoors. And we all know there's millions and zillions and trillions of stars out there. We all know that if we went outside on our balconies right now or outside our front door, we all know that we wouldn't be able to count the stars. Don't need to see it. I know it. I know there's numerous. I know there's many stars. I know they can't be counted. Why does God take Abraham outside? What's the game over here? That's question one, problem one. Here's problem two. What is this equation between the number of stars in the heavens and the number of descendants that Abraham is going to have? Probably not literal, right? There seems to be a discrepancy, a huge discrepancy between the stars and the population of Jews. I think there's 15 million Jews in the world. Well, there's more stars than that. In fact, there might even be more stars in the universe than all the Jews that have ever lived combined throughout history. So what's going on over here? Any astronauts out there listening to me that can tell me how many stars there are in the universe? I truly don't know. But I'm told, I see, my sources tell me that it's far more than 15 million, far more than the amount of Jews there are today, that's for sure. So where's God's promise that the Jews are going to be more numerous than the stars? If you know how many stars there are, punch into that box. And I'll let listeners know how many stars there are if there's any astronauts on this evening to the program. So we got two problems over here. One, wow, I got answers coming in now. Wow, that's very nice. Got some answers coming in on all kinds. Problem one and problem two and the stars. Someone writes here billions of stars. Wow. So problem one again is, why does God take Abraham outside? Even inside the house we know that the stars are very, very numerous and can't be counted. And problem number two, where is it? Where's the payout? There's not billions of Jews. Let's go on to our next slide for answers. It is explained, our sages teach us, that God was not interested in having Abraham count the stars. He was showing him something symbolic. He wanted him to just look up at the heavens. And just looking up at the heavens is looking at one of the great mysteries of the world. Looking up, we see so much. The more we see, the more the mystery. Comets, stars, moon, planets, sun, black, blue. There's so much going on up there. So God takes Abraham out of his tent and tells him, Abraham, you don't understand how your legacy will be preserved. Now, I know you have no children. I know you're old. But I'm telling you that you will become a great nation. If stars are one of the mysteries of this world that defy explanation, so too will your descendants defy explanation. Jews themselves are one of the great mysteries of the world, one of the great mysteries of human existence, as we're about to see in great detail in just a moment. So logically speaking, there shouldn't be any Jews today. Pharaoh tried to kill us, right? And Nebuchadnezzar tried to kill us. And the Crusades, the Inquisitions, and the Holocaust, and the pogroms, and the Hamases, and the Hezbollahs, and the Saddam Husseins. There's no end to the attempts there have been to wipe the Jews off the face of the earth. But the Jews are still here. This is a mystery. So many great and powerful nations that really no one tried to systematically destroy, like the ancient Romans and the ancient Egyptians, they're not here. But the Jews, who are continually, without cessation, since the beginning of all time, are persecuted and they're always trying to kill us, we're still here. This is a mystery. Let's see our next slide. I want to take you to the words of Mark Twain. Mark Twain said about the Jews, his contributions, the Jews' contributions to the world's list of great names in literature, science, art, music, finance, medicine, are also way out of proportion to the weakness of his numbers. The Jew has made a marvelous fight in the world in all the ages, and has done it with his hands tied behind him. He could be vain of himself and be excused for it. The Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Persians, they rose and filled the planet with sound and splendor, then faded to dream stuff and passed away. The Greek and the Roman followed and made a vast noise, but they are gone. Other peoples have sprung up and held their torch high for a time, but it burned out, and they sit in twilight or have completely vanished. The Jew saw them all, beat them all, and is now what he always was, exhibiting no decadence, no infirmities of age, no weakening of his parts, no slowing of his energies, no dulling of his alert and aggressive mind. All things are mortal, but the Jew, all other forces pass, but the Jew remains. What is the secret of his immortality, says Mark Twain? And the answer is that's the connection between the Jews and outer space. It's one of the mysteries of mankind. We don't know what's going on out there. That's why there's always astronauts trying to learn more and more. It's a mystery, and the more they know, the more they realize how much they have to learn. We have some great responses coming in here this evening. I mean, you guys are just awake and with it and alert. I have another answer to the Jewish question, why we're so small and so many stars. What's God's promise? So one of you are telling me, well, it means spiritually huge. I have another answer coming in over here. Good things come in small packages. I have a joke coming in here. Maybe the Jews are aliens because they're compared to outer space. I have good, interesting stuff coming in here. Okay, great work, guys. Let's go on to our next slide for our next Torah thought. Okay, we're going to learn about a sickness that's very rampant in the world today. It's called moneyitis. When you're obsessed with money and wealth and power, obsessed. Money, money, money. The Torah says, the verse says, and they took Lot and his possessions, the nephew of Abraham, and they left, for he lived in Sodom. Look at this verse very closely. You have to know this verse to understand what I'm about to teach you. Again, the verse says, I quote, "And they took Lot and his possessions, the nephew of Abram, and they left, for he lived in Sodom." The wording of this verse seems very odd. Why are the words, the nephew of Abraham, out of order? They are not where they should be. Look at that verse. The words, the nephew of Abraham, are in a very odd place. They are not positioned properly. They should not be written there. Why does the Torah write this verse in such a weird way, putting the information, the nephew of Abraham and his possessions, in the wrong order? I'm going to tell you why this verse is in the wrong order. Lot began his life as a righteous person. Yes, Lot was a good guy, a tzaddik, a righteous man. He was a disciple of his uncle, Abraham Avinu, the first Jew. And he followed Abraham wherever he went. He followed him from the Iraq area on his way to the land of Israel, through Turkey. He went down with him to Egypt, by the way. When Abraham and Sarah went to Egypt, Lot was there. And in fact, Lot is praised that he went along with Abraham's risky plan to lie at the Egyptian border and say that Sarah was his sister, was Abraham's sister, not his wife. Remember that? We learned that. It was in a program or two ago, that when Abraham came to Egypt, he said Sarah was his sister, not his wife. Why? Because as Abraham correctly guessed, what do you do with pretty ladies when they come to Egypt? You take them to Pharaoh. You take them to the ruler for the ruler to rape the pretty ladies. Do what he wants with the pretty ladies. So Abraham had this whole plan of lying to the border guards in Egypt and saying, it's not my sister, it's not my wife, it's my sister, because they would often kill the husbands of pretty ladies so as not to commit the sin of adultery. They don't mind committing the sin of murder, but the sin of adultery, they wouldn't even think of it. So if a woman was married, they would just kill the husband. There's no adultery. She's not married. So Abraham had this whole plan, and Lot went along with it. Lot kept the secret. And as I mentioned, the Medrash says that Lot's loyalty to Abraham earned him the merit for being rescued from Sodom, as we will learn shortly, probably next week. So the verse references the fact that Abraham referred to himself and Lot as Anashim Achim Anachnu. Abraham called his relationship with Lot like we are brothers. Abraham declares that Lot was righteous. Now, somewhere along the line, something happened to Lot. Somewhere along the line, Lot drifted. He deviated off the proper path. And the Torah tells us that Lot went straight away. He strayed from the proper path. When the Torah says, and God spoke to Abraham after Lot parted company from him, the Medrash explains that when Lot was with Abraham, God would not speak with him. God would not speak with Abraham when Lot was around in his presence, because Lot had turned wicked and God didn't want to reveal his presence in the midst of a wicked man. Only, the Torah says, when Lot separated from Abraham, did God resume speaking with Abraham. So what caused him to become wicked? And I think the answer is what caused Lot to become wicked can be found in the verse that we quoted at the opening of this slide, the verse that you should see at the top of your screen. The answer is in the verse. It says, and they took Lot and his possessions, the nephew of Abram. That which separated Lot from Abram was his possessions. What was between? What was the difference? What was the moral problem, deficiency between Avram and Lot? I quote, possessions. Lot's money is what separated Lot from Abraham. Not only here in this verse, but their entire outlook in life now was forever irreconcilable. Money. Lot got into his possessions, his money. That was far more important to him than family, than his righteous uncle, than God, than Torah, than values, ethics, moral, money, possessions. After Lot got rich, he wanted to go and live the high life. And back then, where do you go if you want to live the good life? You're rich and you can afford whatever pleasures in life you want. They didn't have Vegas. They had Sodom. And Lot went to Sodom. Lot's wealth went to his head, and it drove him away from Abraham into the worst possible circles, the worst possible lifestyle. He went and he immigrated to Sodom. Let's go on to our next slide over here. I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story, a historical story based on this idea of the money and the possessions and Lot and getting to your head and living the good life and forgetting and abandoning the Torah. There was a rabbi, Rabbi Enkin Schlesinger. I'm actually not sure if he's still alive. He may very well still be alive, but he's very, very old if he is. And the story that Rabbi Enkin Schlesinger tells us, is as follows. Very relevant to Lot's problem of running after money. During World War II, Rabbi Schlesinger's family fled their home in Europe and made their way to Vienna. Many other Eastern European refugees also arrived, running away from the Nazis. Later, there was a rumor that the SS, the Nazis, were about to enter Vienna. So Rabbi Schlesinger's father, I think his name was David, decided to leave, even though it meant leaving everything behind. Many of the other refugees, however, tried to dissuade him, telling him that things will be all right. They were urging him not to cause panic by fleeing again. Rabbi Schlesinger's father refused to listen to these people's arguments and was determined to leave, even if he had to leave with only the shirt on his back. And indeed, the family left everything behind. They went out of Vienna, and they survived the Holocaust. They survived the war. Those who remained in Vienna, as history proved, were taken to concentration camps and were killed by the Nazis. So these people, they lost not only their property, but they lost their lives as well. What prevented all these other people from leaving? Why did so many Jews stay behind and not get out when they could and be alive today? They did not leave because they would have to leave their property behind. You see, when faced with the specter of losing either their lives or their life savings, people sometimes try to convince themselves that everything will turn out well. People use various irrational arguments and rationalizations to avoid giving up their property. As strange as this may seem, the Talmud says, in the words of the Talmud, to some people, their money is more dear to them than their lives. So true. Look at the picture on your screen, how people run after money and often leads to a shortened lifespan. Why does the verse tell us that Lot was living in Sodom? We knew from previous verses that Lot was living in Sodom, in Sodom. And the answer, my friends, is related to the reason that Lot was in Sodom in the first place. Because there were opportunities in Sodom. One could make a good living in Sodom. Everything was legal in Sodom. He wanted money. He wanted the life. So when the verse in the Torah mentions Lot, it emphasizes Lot and his property, the nephew of Avram, because first and foremost, Lot cared about his money. And the verse adds, he was living in Sodom. The verse is telling us again, that he was living in Sodom in order to emphasize the point that the reason why he was there in the first place was because he was drawn there by the economy and the opportunity for living the high life. As hard as people may work for their money, they must keep things in perspective, my friends. There are priorities in life. Unfortunately, sometimes people mix up those priorities. I think there's a saying that something goes something like this. Maybe listeners out there can help me. People spend their life making money, but then they have to use that money to get their health. Something like that. You work so hard, you get yourself so ill and so sick, and you make the money, but you end up spending that money because you need all kinds of cures, medical cures, because you made yourself sick earning the money. So what did you gain? Making a living, my friends, is very, very important. Having money in the bank is very, very important. Make no mistake about it. But the lengths that people go for money is, unfortunately, more often than not, out of control, off the charts. God is going to give you what you need. See, most of these people that go to unhealthy lengths for money, destroying family and all kinds of relationships in the process, shows a lack of faith in God. God is going to give you whatever you need. And in fact, God has allotted to every single person on the planet, we believe in Judaism, God has allotted to every single person on the planet how much money they're going to make, how much money they're going to have in any given year. Now, if God decreed you are going to have X amount of money in a given year, you are going to have X amount of money no matter how hard you work. Of course, you got to put in the effort. You got to play ball. But you don't have to be at the office at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. You don't have to be in the office at 6 a.m. That's going overboard. As long as you put in a hard day's work, you are going to get everything that God wants you to get. There's no point in making yourself sick. That's not what God intended. I have Didi over here giving me the exact quote of the thought I shared with you a moment ago, and the quote is, you spend your health to get your wealth, and then you spend your wealth to get your health. That's exactly what I was looking for, Didi. Thank you very much. So let's have a quick amen over here in the box that making a living is important. Having money in the bank is important. Working hard is important. But making yourself sick over it is simply blasphemous and heretical. God will ensure that you have everything He wants you to have in the course of normal effort and a normal life. Amen, amen, amen. Let's turn our attention now to the famous prayer, Adon Olam. And you'll see maybe now or maybe the next slide why I'm bringing up the prayer Adon Olam in this evening's program. Adon Olam is a famous, famous Jewish prayer. It's very old, and it appears many times in the Jewish liturgy. It's found in most prayer books, in most Sidurim, and most prayer books at the beginning, at the opening pages, so that Adon Olam is recited at the beginning of each day. It is best known, perhaps, as coming around on Shabbat morning. Most synagogues around the world, certainly those in North America, generally end the service a Shabbat morning service with the singing of Adon Olam. Some also sing it at the conclusion of the Friday night service and other holiday services. As you can see, Adon Olam is very hallowed, sacred, and it's made its impact. It's very beloved, and some people say it even every single night before going to bed. It's quite prominent, to say the least. I think the message is clear. There's two different versions of Adon Olam. Most people don't know this fact, by the way, that there are actually two different versions of Adon Olam in circulation. There's a shorter 10-line version, which is the more popular one, especially in the Ashkenazi world, but a Sephardic Adon Olam will often contain 14 lines. Both versions, both Adon Olams, focus on the theme of an eternal God and absolute faith in God's providence. The meaning of the first two words of the prayer, Adon Olam, is a subject of some debate. Adon could mean master or lord, but the word Olam is very difficult to accurately translate. It has some ambiguity. In the Bible, for example, the word Olam means ancient or eternal or everlasting. In modern Hebrew, Olam means world or universe. So some translations of Olam choose to interpret the first two words as eternal Lord, in keeping with the biblical Hebrew. And this fits nicely with the rest of the verse, the rest of the line, which discusses God's presence in the world having been around before anything was created. Other translations have Adon Olam as master of the universe, in keeping with the rabbinic Hebrew, emphasizing the theme of dominion, which returns later in the 6th line of Adon Olam. Traditionally, it's said that the author of Adon Olam was Rabbi Shlomo ibn Gvirol, an 11th century Spanish poet, but there's no concrete evidence that he wrote it. In fact, it's likely that Adon Olam is from the 10th or even 9th century, possibly written in Babylon. It's been recited by Ashkenazi Jews since the 14th century. There are many, many, many tunes for Adon Olam. You'll find many online, contemporary tunes, rock and roll tunes, traditional tunes. Another interesting fact about Adon Olam is, since it's at the end of the service, very often in most synagogues, the children are invited up to the podium, up to the pima, we call it, the altar, perhaps it's called. Children are invited up to the front of the synagogue to lead the singing of Adon Olam. In fact, in many synagogues over Hanukkah that we just had, Adon Olam was sung in Hanukkah tunes, or the Maoz Tzur tune, or the Al Hanisim tune. So what I have for you now is a very special presentation, and that is Adon Olam in the most famous Israeli tune, with a word-for-word translation, I believe, and you can get a taste of the Adon Olam. Sit back, relax, enjoy, and pray along.
אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא עת נעשה בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא עת נשא בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. The Adon Olam with this tune, the song of the famous Uzi Chitman, who popularized this Israeli tune of Adon Olam. Wow, that was beautiful. So, to our next slide, which will explain to you why I decided to discuss and share with you Adon Olam this evening. Why does the Siddur, as I mentioned, the prayer book, open with Adon Olam? The Talmud quotes a teaching of Rabbi Yochanan in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. And the Talmud tells us that from the day God created the world, no one called God Master, no one called God Adon until Abraham came and called God Adon. So since we're talking so much about Abraham this evening, very appropriate to share with you the famous Adon Olam. And now you know who was the first person to refer to God as Adon, and you know why now Adon Olam is the opening pages of the prayer book. Each of the three daily prayers correspond to one of the three great patriarchs of the Jewish people. Abraham, the first patriarch, is the figure for the morning prayer Shacharit, and by the way, Isaac is the figure associated with Mincha, the afternoon prayer, and Jacob is a figure associated with Mariv, the night prayer. So why is God called Adon, master, as opposed to king or monarch over here? Why master? It is explained that there is a difference between a king and a master. The relationship between a king and a citizen of the country is a very tenuous one. What do I have to do with the king? The king does not know I exist. He's not aware of my needs or problems. Probably applies to anybody living in the United States of America today. The president doesn't care about your needs or problems, doesn't know about them, doesn't care about them. But the word Adon, my friends, is a word used in connection with a servant and his master. The relationship between a master and a servant is a very different one than the relationship between a king and his citizen. The master knows his servant very well. There's a personal relationship that exists between them. Abraham introduced into the world the idea that God is not merely our king, he's our master. He was the first person to recognize that despite the fact that God is king of all kings, he's also my master. There's a personal relationship there. And this idea fits in very nicely with the wording, with the flow of Adon Olam prayer. The prayer begins with the terminology, master of the world who ruled before any form was created. But it later says, he is my God and my living Redeemer, rock of my pain, my banner, my refuge. This makes it even more appropriate to label Adon Olam as a prayer of Avraham Avinu, because Avram was the person who taught that the Almighty is both the king and a personal God. Adon Olam for you. Let's talk more about this corrupt societies that we mentioned earlier about Sodom. One of the primary messages, themes of the book of Genesis is a concept that the Talmud calls Maseh Avot Siman Lebanim. Talmud teaches that the book of Genesis is in the spirit of the actions of the fathers foreshadows what will happen to their children. Meaning, one who wishes to know what will happen to the Jewish people, the Jewish past, and the Jewish future need only look to the book of Genesis and glean a lot of insight into Jewish history, both past, present, and future. But it means a lot more than that. The Maaseh Avot, Siman Lebanim, the actions of the fathers are foreshadows what happens to their children, to the Jewish people. There's much more to that. It also means that our strength as a nation to endure that which we continue to experience as a people, our strength, our survival comes by virtue of the fact that our patriarchs experienced it first. It's in our DNA because of the experiences of our patriarchs. When Avram Avinu goes down to Egypt and survives, or Yaakov Avinu goes into exile and survives, this molded them, this changed them, this shaped them, it made an impression on their souls. And the Jewish people, descendants of these great people who learned how to survive in exile, well, it's in our DNA, it was passed down. We share the souls of our forefathers. Everybody does. Consequently, the impression that those activities made on our collective souls gives us the strength to endure what we have had to endure as a people. This is the Maaseh Avot Siman Lebanim. The actions, the experiences of the forefathers foreshadows what will happen to their children. Regarding Abraham going down to Egypt, our sages tell us that Egypt was a land that was permeated with sexual immorality. It was a land that was morally bankrupt. The fact that Avram Avinu survived this horrible atmosphere gave us, his descendants, the ability to survive any spiritual exile that we have to endure. However, we learned something else from Avram Avinu. When Avram saw that he was going into a land of immorality, when Avram knew he was going down to Egypt, he took action. He knew that going into Egypt, he could not conduct his life in a business as usual type fashion. And that's why he told Sarah, as mentioned earlier, say that you're my sister, don't tell them you're my wife. Avram realized that when one is in a land that is immersed, steeped in immorality,
One must institute special enactments. One must plan special defenses to deal with these threatening situations. And regrettably, my friends, you'll agree, the world today has become a land that is immersed in all types of immorality. Things that are said in the national media, things that are done on TV, would not have even been dreamt of 30 years ago. This is the society we live in. Everywhere you go, there's immorality, there's bad morals, bad ethics. This is something we have the ability to survive these horrible influences we have from Abraham. Life is not business as usual. We must, all of us, must protect ourselves. We must protect ourselves to ensure that we keep the moral standards, ethics that we know we must live up to. We must ensure that our children are not brainwashed by what they see outside the home. They have to be brainwashed by what they see inside the home. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to end on this message of morality, this message of ensuring that your children are protected. Filter that internet, my friends. Filter that internet. Other than the news and these webinars, pretty much everything else out there is out of bounds. As someone's telling me right now, those who lie down with dogs will rise up with fleas. My friends, and amen to morality. We can do it. We can beat the outside influence of this world because we have it in our DNA, not only the Jewish people, but anyone who wants to tap into the message of Abraham. You're going to get it. You're going to have that ability, that godly blessing and assistance to stay moral, to stay strong, and to pass these values on to your children. Ladies and gentlemen, once more before we go, I'm going to just one more Hanukkah piece for you. One more Hanukkah piece for you because I just can't get out of the Hanukkah mode. And with that, we'll say goodbye to Hanukkah, at least on the more real sense. Though, as we mentioned earlier, the fires of Hanukkah should be with you all year long. And with that, I'm going to look for this one more Hanukkah video. Where is? I think I had a good Hanukkah video. Here it is. And with that, I'm going to say Shalom ulehitraot. See you next week.
I'll tell a tale. Yeah. Of Maccabees in Israel, yeah. When the Greeks tried to sail, yeah. But it was all to no avail, yeah. The war went on and on and on until the mighty Greeks were gone, yeah. I put my lockers in the air sometimes, saying, hey, oh, spin the dreidel. Just wanna celebrate for all 8 nights, singing hey-oh, light the candle. We say Al-Hamishim, oh yeah, for all 8 nights. Then we play dreidel by the candlelight. And I told you once, now I told you twice, about the miracle of the candlelight. They took the field. Their rivals thought, are they for real? Those Maccabees, they never yield. They charged ahead with sword and shield. Yeah, the war went on and on until the mighty Greeks were gone. Yeah, I put my lockers in the air sometimes, saying, hey, oh, spin the dreidel. Just wanna celebrate for all 8 nights, singing hey-oh, light the candle. We say ma'otzur, oh yeah, for all 8 nights. Then we play dreidel by the candlelight. And I told you once, now I told you twice, about the miracle of the candlelight. And the great menorah, for 8 days it kept on burning. What a celebration wanna celebrate for all late nights, singing hey-oh, light the candles. We say ma'otsur, oh yeah, for all late nights.